Welcome to Web3 and Whiskey, a podcast about how the decentralized internet will change our lives. Every week, we react to a future when users and communities have all of the power, and when digital lives might be as vibrant as real life. And we drink whiskey while doing it. I'm your host, Gary Liu, and as always, I am joined by Suresh Balaji, founder of the Web3 Marketing Association, and Malcolm Ong, a product leader and serial entrepreneur. Today's main topic is, what if Biden suddenly tweets ETH? ETH. What if Biden suddenly tweets ETH? Now let's start, as we always do, with our whiskeys, gentlemen. Malcolm, what are you sipping on today?
Today I got a Belvanese 16.
How does it taste?
It's very clean. I like it.
Nice sake glass there, or cup.
Yes, in a sake cup.
It is called a cup, right? The holding vehicle for sake, or the delivery vehicle for sake.
I think so.
Okay, all right. Sake cup with Balvenie,
Cheers.
which is great.
Why sake cup?
I don't know. I just like using this.
Right now we can't verify whether or not there's whiskey in that cup. I think that's the problem.
That's true.
That's
true.
Well,
you guys
water.
are just going to have to trust me.
Yeah, it's hard to trust you at times. Suresh, who is still in bright old London, and so it's way early in the morning. So it's not a whiskey that you're drinking right now, but there was a whiskey that you drank last night, you tell us, right?
Yeah, not just a few hours ago. So it's really early in the morning in London. So thank you very much. I'm still surfacing, coming up for air. So I tried distillery called Springbank. A friend of mine introduced me to Springbank last night. Apparently, small batches. Traditional, good old Scottish family who still own it. I tried the 10-year. It's a bit of a coastal side distillery. So I must admit, you could actually taste the seawater.
Yeah, I like that
at the end, which was so nice. You start with sort of honey notes, and and sort of you can taste the cask, and then you eventually get to that was interesting. That ended with some salt. So fabulous, fabulous whiskey.
Well done. It's a good one to end the night on. Speaking of which, Suresh, I think we actually have something to celebrate with our whiskeys today, because Little Bird tells me that you have a new job. Suresh Balaji is now the global CMO of Standard Chartered's B2C business. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. Yay. Officially day 7, which is what has brought me to London, and which is why I'm doing this podcast at an unearthly hour.
Well, thank you for your dedication to the craft. And for me, I have another independent bottle this week. This independent bottler is called Signatory Vintage, and the bottle itself is of a Bunnahabhain that has been aged 10 years. Now, Bunnahabhain is a distillery in Islay, right? And I think most people know Islay for their really smoky, peaty scotches, right? That iodine flavor of Lagavulin and Laphroaig. Bunnahabhain happens to be, I believe, the only distillery, or one of the very few distilleries on Islay, that does not peat their whiskey. So it has that earthiness of an Islay without necessarily that smokiness. And this independent bottle has been aged in a very strong sherry cask, which gives it a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of spiciness, but it also allows this whiskey to be bottled at a ridiculous 68.2% ABV.
Ooh.
So
it's pretty high.
Let's
Wow.
see. Let's see what I feel like at the end of this podcast after drinking this. So, gentlemen, raise your glasses, and Suresh, this is to you. Congratulations on the new gig. Cheers.
Thank you.
Oh, I can taste that and feel that.
Malcolm's drinking whiskey in a sake glass, and I've been drinking tea in a whiskey glass. So
well done. The tea in the whiskey glass looks like whiskey. The whatever in a sake glass is barely acceptable. All right, now it is time for reactions to the news. Over to our producer, Disco Wolf, or as we call him, D-Dubs.
Thanks. Enough about whiskeys for now. It's time for some coffee. First of 5 news items today. Starbucks introduces a Web3-based rewards program. Malcolm.
Speaking of drinking, this is like drink to earn, right? I think Starbucks, they're a case study. Their rewards program is a case study for one of the best loyalty programs that are out there. They have 27 million rewards members as of last quarter. And it actually, the thing that's interesting is it represents over 50% of their sales. And so it's a big deal for them. It's exciting to see what they are going to do with this. I think they're taking it very, very seriously, of course. They haven't exactly told us what the rewards will be, what I can get out of it. They mentioned something about being able to redeem it for one-of-a-kind experience. Does this mean that I can resell, these rewards because it's an NFT? But I think this is super interesting. I'm just sort of curious what this becomes.
I really like Starbucks taking their time to figure out the utility before they launched NFTs. I think most companies who've been launching NFTs are doing it kind of as a money grab, maybe as a collectible, but almost never thinking about it properly as a form of membership. And it seems like Starbucks is really doing that, which makes sense because they have historically adopted technology really intelligently. Their existing rewards program, as Malcolm said, and loyal customer base are excellent. I did not realize it was over 50% of their revenue. That's incredible. And I think that the Starbucks execution here for the NFT could very well be a case study for other retail giants to learn from. Now, I'd be really disappointed if they don't call the actual token that goes with the utility Starbucks with an X. I'll give that to you for free.
Nice.
I'll give that to you for free, Mr. Schultz. But I am curious about one thing, how their entire third place mission, right? Because Starbucks is supposed to be the third place after your home and your office, I think. How their third place mission changes when the digital world becomes the next generation's first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place. Where does Starbucks fit into that? They're selling a physical thing that frankly can't be replicated in the digital world, or may not be, unless we start having real-time baristas, like mechanical baristas at home. Ooh, again, maybe that's a second idea that I need to charge Mr. Schultz for. The first one for free, the second one you pay.
Brilliant. And I think, so here is the thing, right? I think you're right. It's super clever. Loyalty programs are the Web0 version of a community, right? That's where it all starts. Interestingly, loyalty programs have always been, brand to customer one-on-one. But if you're able to use NFT token gating and bringing a community in and have a many-to-many conversation, this could lead to lots of opportunities from customer research to really having a small group of super loyalists who can try and test your new products. There is a whole host of things this might unlock. But here's the other thing, which is making loyalty programs as tokens also makes sense because a native token can live off the fiat balance sheet. So you don't have to carry a massive book of loyalty tokens, which are all denominated to US dollars. And you're going, wow, at some point, somebody's going to redeem all these points, which means it continues to grow and grow and grow. Some brands, of course, go, okay, there is an expiry date to this, and everyone's scrambling to burn the points that they have. But Starbucks doesn't do that, which means now it's their Starbucks. To Gary's point, is a currency in itself, which means then it creates new liquidity pools, it creates new value. There's just a whole host of parallel economy that they can set up, especially with that level of loyalty and that level of sales. I think this is super genius. Many brands will jump on it. The interesting piece would be if they do a partnership with another big airline or a big retail chain, and they create interoperability between loyalty points and loyalty tokens. That would probably be the next step. But I think Starbucks, really well done.
Okay, second item of the day, FTX partners with Reddit to roll out tokenized community points. Suresh.
Well, just another experiment towards mass adoption. It all feels super convoluted. But I'm glad they're trying.
I think at first when I was reading it, right, it sounded like they were powering the community point system. But obviously, like the community point system that Reddit came out with has actually been a while. And so if you actually take a closer look, it was mostly just FTX Pay, their pay product, allowing Reddit users to buy ETH so that they can use it to pay for gas to spend their points. So honestly, this actually seemed, just like a PR thing, nothing to really see here. So
can we get a sound effect for like a nothing burger announcement? Like whenever there's a nothing burger. This is one of those. Okay. To Malcolm's point, this is an FTX Pay integration for transactions. That's pretty much it, right? So fiat to crypto to community points. It's just so that Reddit doesn't have to build their own kind of like onboarding, on ramping payment solution. Now, that said, I think the announcement itself is a nothing burger, but I'm actually very curious about community points in general for Reddit, because this is an effort that's been brewing for a few years. And I think a lot of people might be like, oh, it's been in the news for a few years. The announcement was made like a year ago that they were going to be on this new blockchain called Arbitrum. Anyone know how to pronounce it? Arbitrum, right? Arbitrum.
Yeah.
But remember, they literally just launched on this new Arbitrum Nova chain this week. So it is actually quite new, and it has not scaled yet. And it's still in closed beta for communities, right? So maybe I think Reddit might be able to make something out of this, because Reddit itself has a very mature ecosystem economy already, right? And that people take their Reddit identities really seriously. They take karma seriously, trophies, flares, and now Reddit allows like NFT avatars. So that Reddit identity matters. I'm a daily Redditor. It matters to me. And so the idea that identity and that reputation might be interoperable is kind of cool. So I'll keep a closer eye on the Reddit community points thing, but the FTX thing, a little bit of a nothing burger.
Number 3 item. Beijing plans to develop a $7.5 billion virtual human industry using Web3 technology. Gary.
Okay, now here's one thing that you have to understand when we're talking about anything to do with Beijing and China's tech development. The entire country's national development operates off of 5-year plans, and we're currently on the 14th 5-year plan for the Chinese government. And these 5-year plans are not propaganda, but actually national strategies are taken extremely seriously from the very, very top of the government all the way down, okay, to the bottom. Now, in this 14th 5-year plan for China, there is a very deep focus on technology and innovation. The sort of big tech company crackdown notwithstanding, and especially on the development of what the Chinese government refers to as a digital economy and the expansion of digital life. Okay, this is its own section in the 14th 5-year plan. So Chinese leaders view digital life as a way to actually provide accessibility to populations in China outside of major cities. Right? There are still like 600 million people in China that live outside of the major tier cities. And I think digital life can create richer diversity and experiences for everyone, even those who are outside of Beijing and Shanghai and Hangzhou and cities like that. So I don't think we actually should be surprised if China doubles or triples down on their own version of the metaverse, because it actually it dovetails pretty nicely into their 14th 5-year plan, which, by the way, ends in 2025. But the key thing is that it is going to be their own version of the metaverse. It's not going to be open. It's not going to connect to the rest of the world. It will be their own version.
But that's very similar to their Web2 policies and Web2 ecosystem, and it was the way that China. It's usually very unpopular to say this in the West when we say, oh yeah, you know what, China took something and they made it even better, and that was the story with WeChat, and that was the story with games, and that was the story with a whole lot of things. So I think China will take a big leap. You're right, and I also think that I think it's not just about China. I have a hypothesis that every human will eventually have their one digital twin, who will be the manifestation of all their imaginations and all their dreams. This is a big leap for us as a species. I mean, it's perhaps the biggest one yet, since the cognitive leap that we took when we were cavemen, and we said, oh yeah, actually we could draw some stuff and we can imagine some stuff. Now that imagination is taking us to creating a digital twin which will live in the third space, fourth space, which is fabulous. And kudos to China for doubling down.
I wonder if the Chinese government cares about Harari. I do wonder about that.
Now, I thought the thing that I took away from this was the fact that they mentioned a blockchain-based trading platform for models, skins, and textures, right? So I don't even know what that exactly means, and they didn't really specify what this means. But imagine you have a marketplace for components or accessories of creating these virtual avatars, something similar to like Nintendo Me or what you've seen in games or even some sort of metaverse applications right now. That I think could become something interesting, especially as we move towards a digital exclusive life, or definitely spending more and more time in this digital life. What that could potentially look like. So that piece, I think, was the thing that really caught my attention.
Number 4, Coinbase posts loss as crypto market turmoil hits trading volumes. Suresh.
Not surprised, and no comment.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. I mean, it's crypto winter, bear market in today's environment. Coinbase, a company like Coinbase posting a loss, not surprising. Beyond that, they're facing a lot of regulatory and legal scrutiny, right? I think the SEC just did a probe on whether or not they listed their listed tokens should be deemed as securities. They also recently indicted former product managers and employees for insider trading. So a lot of stuff going against them. But I think they recently also just announced a partnership with like BlackRock, which is super interesting. They did a partnership with Meta, Facebook, which is pretty interesting. So I think it's just one of those things where we're in a downturn. The whole market's in a downturn. I'm still optimistic and bullish. I think Coinbase will hold their own and recover from this.
Yeah, I agree with Malcolm on this one. Not a surprise at all, but I would still bet on Coinbase long term. Remember, they've been around since 2012. They're building off of a long-term vision, and they were the first to really work with regulators to design what future policy around cryptocurrency trading at scale should look like. So I think this is a dip and a predictable dip, but long term, I think Coinbase will be fine.
Okay, final item. Someone's trolling celebrities by sending them ETH from the sanctioned mixer service Tornado Cash. Malcolm.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hilarious, right? So Tornado Cash, it's a crypto mixer that allows people to use it such that you don't really know the origin of where the money comes from. And so it's definitely been used for a lot of both legal and illegal reasons. And so now that someone has sent a bunch of ETH to these Docs wallets, it's a little bit of a nice laugh, I think. But I mean, regardless, right? I think I have a feeling that these services are just going to prop up again and again and again. So I don't know. And it's just a temporary laugh, I suppose, of like someone being able to point out that what the Treasury Department did in crypto, it doesn't really apply here. So
yeah, this is absolutely hilarious. I think it's absolutely great trolling. I love it. Besides the fact that I think the Treasury Department is going to really quickly learn that the way that they governed or the way that they policed things in the past really can't work in the new world. Beyond that, I think is really interesting because this highlights the very transparent nature of blockchain. And even though you can remain anonymous on blockchain, once you are doxxed, whether it's purposely or accidentally, anyone can see your transaction history and people can send stuff directly to the equivalent of your bank account. And I'm not sure that we've considered the implications of this enough for the future. Even these like famous crypto people who ostensibly are experts on this, they've probably not considered enough what that means for the future as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? I mean, where there are celebs, there are going to be trolls. This is going to continue to happen irrespective of Web3 or Web4. And I think that is this the equivalent of shit posting stuff on a celeb's Instagram account, or is it trying to drag someone into a controversy? I think that's what's going on here, right? But I agree with you. This is hilarious. This is something. It is genius whoever did this, and I think it's going to help in some way. The Treasury are probably going to look at this, going, okay, now how do we solve for this? And this is actually going to help, in the long run in solving for regulation in this space.
Thanks everyone for your reactions. Now back to Gary to introduce our what if scenario today.
All right, our main discussion topic for today. What if Biden suddenly tweets ETH? ETH. What if Biden suddenly tweets ETH? As we always have for these main topics of discussion, there are a few ground rules. Here are the ground rules for today. This tweet was not a mistake, okay? Biden's or the POTUS account was not hacked. That's our first assumption. The second ground rule is that this tweet was not in response to anything, not part of a thread or a tweet storm. It was just standalone 3 letters. The third ground rule, this is not part of a series of tweets or announcements about cryptocurrencies or aspects around blockchain. So for whatever reason, it seems that Biden seems to just care about ETH, right? And then finally, Biden is speaking as the president on behalf of the US government, not just some random citizen giving his opinions. So those are the ground rules. What if Biden suddenly tweets ETH? Now, the first thing that comes to mind is that, I mean, this immediately does something to Biden's personal brand and what Biden represents to people around the world, for good or for worse. So why don't we go to our brand expert first? Suresh, I want to hear what you think about this. If Biden were to tweet ETH.
Oh wow, this is a really good what if, Gary. Thanks for coming up with it. I think, yeah, good point about Biden's brand. I was thinking about the same. It'll go from old-fashioned conservative to new age overnight. It'll be a bit of a shock, right? It is going to be like me on the dance floor, right? Dad on the dance floor moment. And it's going to go from traditional to a bit trippy overnight. Everyone's going to go, wow, look at this, what's going on? The tweet is so far away from will be so far away from his current brand image and brand identity. Think about the tenets of a good brand, right? So one of the most important tenet of a good brand is the audience that the brand speaks to. And the current Biden brand speaks to, very conservative, traditional Democrats, a huge loyal following after years of being in various offices. Now suddenly he's going to move from talking to a super hardcore group of loyalist conservatives to a super hardcore group of Ethereum maximalists, and they're all going to go, whoa, the POTUS just joined our club. Is he going to join our Discord? So
I'll tell you, the Biden aviators will become immediately like legendary traits for PFPs.
That's it. And Reddit and Discord will be full of amazing memes, and it's going to take off. But the effects are the other things to think of, right? What impact will the brand have, and what's the sort of extant effect? And if you look at it, then of course ETH prices will go up, but so will rest of cryptocurrencies. It's almost sort of endorsement of saying, let's now cryptocurrencies are all welcome, and it's great for all cryptocurrency brands, at least the major ones. And if it was, I know you said it was not an accident, it was a planned one. If it was an accident, that would have been really funny, though, right? So, I mean, the White House PR team would go crazy. They would get into action, right? Oh, this is why he said so. This is what prompted him. Or they will probably outrightly deny it, saying he was actually trying to type Beth Warren, and Beth became ETH, and there's a Twitter just auto-corrected it. And that's probably what will happen.
Well, the idea that, by the way, Biden refers to Elizabeth Warren as Beth, that already cracks me up enough. That if he texting Beth Warren.
Everyone will ride on it.
You think basically this rides on him, a quote unquote giving investment advice?
Well, here's the thing, and maybe I'll get to it later, but I think, of course, the cryptocurrency prices are going to go through the roof, ETH prices specifically. But if we take this more logically, I think if he tweets ETH, it's not necessarily about it as a cryptocurrency, and certainly not about it as a replacement for fiat, but far more so about the smart contract capabilities of the Ethereum blockchain. And this is just from a policy point of view, because remember, U.S. policy, at the end of the day, U.S. policy or U.S. regulations always have the same goals. And the primary goal is to maintain U.S. supremacy. And when it comes to currency, maintaining the position of the US dollar as the dominant global reserve currency is of like national security number 1A importance for America. So, I mean, I know that, again, this is not a serious situation. It's a what if. But if this was serious, I cannot imagine that Biden tweeting ETH would be about ETH as a currency, but rather what ETH represents from a technology standpoint for the future. That's my opinion. How are other people going to respond to it? Is he going to be retweeted by Elon?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they will all ride on it, right? Imagine Gary V riding on it. I'm sure all of the crypto exchanges will ride on it. They're all going to respond saying, look now, we are all legit. It's going to give them a lot of legitimacy overnight. And they're not being seen as sort of fly-by-night operators trying to, disrupt fiat.
Is this one thing enough to change Biden's brand? I mean, Biden is not young people, I think, in general, love Biden memes. They really do see him as a representation of a previous generation, which, I mean, frankly, he is. He is. Is one tweet enough in this world? Are we that fickle in the Web3 blockchain world to believe that one tweet changes somebody's entire perspective of this, new internet that we're all building?
There will always be. Exactly.
Okay, so somebody else will make it that big of a deal, even if he didn't mean it for the. It's a big deal. It really would be. Suresh, which other world leaders could have that level of impact if they tweeted ETH from a brand perspective?
Trump, of course. I mean, Elon has had a lot of, I would say run-ins, but he's had some challenges with his own views on cryptocurrencies and how exactly, right? So he's played with this before, and he's and I think all of this sort of could come in the sort of realm of market making, and it could come in the realm of trying to lead an audience, which is scary stuff. I really hope that people are a bit more, and all these celebrities are a bit more. I hope, right, so that they feel it's the right thing to do to ensure that they're not leading people into spaces that they're not aware of.
Oh, come on. They know exactly what they're doing. I mean, Elon knows exactly what he's doing when he tweets Doge.
Yeah, you think?
Well, they all know what they're doing. They're being paid. A lot of them are being paid for it, right? But also the idea of the SEC going after Biden while sitting president for market manipulation is interesting. Listen, there are other implications of it. And one of the major implications, if the ETH prices really do go up, at the end of the day, the gas prices are going to go through the roof as well. Because Ethereum as a blockchain right now is not in a state to allow it to actually scale. Okay, so I want to turn to our product and technologist, Malcolm. Give us your reactions and the implications that you see if Biden tweets ETH.
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum's arguably the most important blockchain right now. Bitcoin does have a larger market cap, but Ethereum, for those of you not familiar, it's programmable, right? And so that's where all the action and activity is happening. So programmable meaning, like, think of it just like the Apple App Store. Developers and anyone can really build applications on top of it. But right now, Ethereum can't really scale. There's a bandwidth issue with it. Biden tweeting ETH certainly gives it some credibility, but until we solve the technological constraints, it's really not going to have any real effect. And so what does that really mean, right? So right now, to put into context, Ethereum can handle about 15 transactions per second. If you compare that to payment rails like Visa's network can handle 65,000 transactions per second. So in order for Ethereum to replace traditional finance, or even become a different version or a better version of that, it needs to at least be at that same level in terms of bandwidth. This is not new, right? Every single technologies go through this. You may remember when internet was as slow as dial-up, when cell phone networks charge you per minute. This is kind of the same thing. Right now, crypto is in this dial-up, era, if you will. But fortunately, we are moving towards a more broadband era, right? Ethereum is working on some upgrades into the network. The first step of this, and which is happening right now, is called the merge. And so we're actually in the final steps of the merge. They're sort of testing it out. And the merge effectively upgrades and changes proof of stake. I won't really go to the technical details of that, but think of it as effectively being able to upgrade the operations behind verifying transactions and reaching consensus. And post-merge, additional upgrades over the next few years will also happen. One in particular is called sharding. And if you've ever worked with databases before, sharding allows you to basically split the database into different parallel pieces, right? So in a very similar fashion, sharding for Ethereum will split the chain into parallel subchains. thus giving it more bandwidth, giving it more capacity, reducing gas fees. So the hope is that eventually Ethereum will reach 100,000 transactions per second. It'll take a few years to get there, but that reality is actually coming closer and closer, and it's actually feels within reach now, especially with the merge happening and the merge being imminent. Mm-hmm. So I think that is super interesting.
Okay, I got two questions. The first is, how much will the merge actually reduce gas prices by? Because there's differing opinions right now, right? I mean, gas prices, the $50 is actually relatively low gas prices when compared to actual peaks. When the other side, like land, came out, or after ApeCoin's drop, and this is a metaverse, a virtual world tied to the Bored Ape Yacht Club kind of universe. Gas prices got to the thousands of dollars because it was so congested with all these people trying to invest in other side. Sorry. So is merging really going to significantly reduce that network congestion?
No, I think the merge itself is just a first step of many steps that will get us there. So I don't actually expect gas prices to significantly go down until the sharding piece happens. And so we're still a few years away from that. You know, right? The merge will help, and it's a prerequisite to these other upgrades that we're going to be making. But it's really until we reach the near end of this plan that Ethereum has, right? There's initially the merge, and they're going to do a bunch of other upgrades with the network. You can look up, using rollups, using L2, layer 2 technologies, and eventually getting to sharding. And so once they do that, then I think the capacity definitely will increase a lot. And that's really the thing that's going to allow gas prices to go down.
Okay, and the second question is this 100,000 transactions per second. I know that we've also heard Vitalik talk about 100,000 transactions per second as the goal. Yes, it's greater than the Visa network right now. So, okay, if Ethereum and Ethereum network replaces traditional fiat transactions, financial transaction systems, 100,000 will be enough. But that's not what we're talking about, right? Like Ethereum is meant to replace in many ways the primary pipes of the internet, period. It's not just financial transactions. So I actually have no idea what the total throughput of the internet is at this point, and what level of transaction volume is necessary for the Ethereum network to become a primary, maybe not the only one, but a primary spine for Web3. Malcolm, I don't know if you have any answer or response to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. So that 100,000 came from Vitalik directly. I don't know why he quoted that number, presumably comparing it to, something like Visa Network. But I agree with you that it's nowhere near what it needs to be if we want to live up, for Ethereum to live up to the promises that it's making, or at least the hope of what it could be. I'd imagine you need a magnitude more than this. So you're absolutely right. Like 100,000 per transaction per second, nowhere near where it needs to be.
Yeah,
but it's not all up to Ethereum, right? I think then I think we will also have secondary chains. We will also have sub chains. We will also have Polygon networks of the likes, and it's not all only up to Ethereum. Number one. The second point is. The whole idea of Web3 is the entire internet is on chain. So everything is a transaction. Every conversation is an NFT, right? So every piece of music someone plays is it has rights, and it's a thing in itself. So I think it will take a lot more than Ethereum. It will take many other blockchains to come and do this. Then the big issue becomes, well, what about interoperability? How do we move stuff between chains? Are there going to be 25 different versions of the internet, or is there just going to be one? And I don't think anyone really cares about interoperability. They all talk about it right now, but they're all busy building their own worlds with VC fueled money for the most part, or basically their own token economies. It's going to be fascinating to see where this all leads, and I just hope that there is one version of the internet which is democratized, decentralized, with it's a proper participation economy, with IP and the rights. That's where it is, I think.
Okay, I'm going to be the dry guy in this conversation. We've talked about what it means for Biden's brand, or the implications of it for Biden's brand, and the actual tech implications, which I think we can spend another like 2 hours digging into the tech side. But there are policy implications here too, right? Policy and regulatory implications. So if Biden really were speaking as the executive branch of the U.S. government, the implications really are enormous. Now, immediately, the legitimacy of cryptocurrencies in general will go up, specifically ETH. And also, I think, and I mentioned this earlier, it's the legitimacy of smart contracts and their applications in society that will get the biggest bump and boost. Okay. That means that there are ramifications for the US legal system, for the economy as a whole, for the financial reserve, for consumer and corporate regulations, and a number of other things. Now, the interesting thing I would like to submit to you guys, as well as our listeners, is that if you have actually been paying attention to US regulatory discussions around blockchain, you might not be as surprised as others could be by a random morning tweet from Biden that says ETH. Because despite the reputation of US lawmakers as both laggards and Luddites, there actually has been some very, very interesting and I personally think encouraging progress vis-a-vis regulations in the US government recently. I'm going to provide two specific examples. The first one. So I think it was December of last year. There was a hearing on Capitol Hill with the House Committee on Financial Services, which included several CEOs of big crypto companies that was very different from previous crypto or any kind of tech-related congressional hearings, right? Tech-related congressional hearings, they are memes in and of themselves. They're snippets that we still replay all the time of people asking the CEO of Google how something on their iPhone works, right? Like stuff like that. And it's almost normal now for us to make fun of members of the House or members of the Senate when they ask tech questions because they don't seem very informed. But this one in December last year was very different. First of all, it was bipartisan. There are people from both sides of the aisle in the room that there wasn't really strong agreement or disagreement on either side. It wasn't like if the Republican Party had their point of view on blockchain and cryptocurrencies and the Democratic Party has the opposite point of view, which frankly speaking is often the case with anything that happens in U.S. politics now, and oftentimes that's the reason why we end up having these congressional hearings. The second reason why it was different is that the representatives that were in the room were actually actively trying to understand the technology, and they were not there to express preconceived judgments. That in itself is absolute progress. In fact, a lot of different analysts who follow this stuff and look at U.S. regulatory moves for technology innovation pointed out the fact that the representatives behaved very differently in this meeting than they expected. The third difference is that it really was a two-way conversation about the applications of crypto. Two-way as in they didn't invite the CEOs just to grill them, just to throw difficult questions at them, or sometimes cornery questions, right, in other hearings, and kind of make them squirm in their seats. This felt like a actual discussion. And then the fourth thing that was different about this was that there was a very clear focus on Web3, or the decentralized future of the internet. That is really, really interesting. Okay, we'll come back to that point in a minute.
What do you think of why is there such a difference? Like, what makes their attitude towards this different than when they were doing hearings with like Facebook, for example?
Yeah, so I think it's because, first of all, I think that there are representatives in the U.S. government that actually understand technology far more so now. And do remember that there is a difference between House committees and Senate committee hearings, because the Senate is just literally an older governing body, right? The people there are oftentimes less connected to next generational technology and expectations. The House is a little bit better, not that much better, but at least a little better. And I think the second reason is that there is a recognition, and that's why I think that these are encouraging signs. There's a recognition by members of Congress, at least, if not also members of Senate. Actually, we're about to get to the members of Senate. There's a recognition that this technology means something important to the United States for the future. So they're not just there to do a gotcha hearing against Facebook or Google or Apple, whomever else. They're actually trying to understand. So speaking of the Senate, the second example of, I think, regulatory progress is that very recently, Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis and New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand announced their legislative proposal called the Responsible Financial Innovation Act. It's very worthwhile to go read this thing. And as far as U.S. regulatory proposals go, this one was very progressive. And it clearly assembled a bunch of arguments in support of crypto and blockchain innovation. Again, this bill was bipartisan, right? Senator Lummis is a Republican, and Senator Gillibrand is a Democrat. This is known now as the Gillibrand-Lummis bill. Second of all, it's very well articulated, especially around the nuances between different digital assets, which really matter, that distinction. The third thing is that it was focused on finding the right regulators in the United States for the right kinds of assets. They clearly differentiated between what the Commodity Futures Trading Commission should be regulating versus what the Securities Exchange Commission should be regulating. And the most important thing about the bill, and what makes it so innovative, in my opinion and in the opinions of much smarter people than me, is that stable coins and other tokens are separated by definition. And actually, the majority of fungible tokens or cryptocurrencies that people trade today would, under this proposal, actually be regulated as commodities and not as securities. This is a big deal. And the reason why that's made possible by this bill is because this bill introduces a brand new concept called the ancillary asset, okay, which distinguishes the assets themselves from the securities agreements that are used to buy and sell them. It's a really smart and very creative way to say, yeah, it's a securities or investment contract that allows you to buy these tokens, but the token itself is a commodity. Okay, so these two examples of progressive conversations of U.S. representatives actually. Government representatives actually thinking and learning before speaking and deciding, and a clear focus on advocating for blockchain development innovation, especially the innovation of Web3, not cryptocurrencies to replace fiat, but rather the technologies that will that are the foundation of a decentralized internet, including smart contracts. I think these signals are really encouraging for the United States. And so if you pay attention to these things, maybe it's not a surprise that Biden is advocating for smart contracts, which are the basis for the U.S. investment in and innovation of Web3.
Amazing. I mean, fills me with optimism this morning, right? I think the other piece that which is fantastic about this is this will also lead to customer protection. This will also lead to downstream impact on ensuring that Ponzi schemes don't come up, and there'll be policing of it, and I think that makes it really positive.
Yeah.
And that is where mass adoption is going to come in.
Yeah.
Mass adoption will come when there is protection. Mass adoption will also come when this now becomes it'll create simplicity of understanding of what this is, because right now it's just multi-layered and multi-complex. Gary, is this your bedtime reading? Do you read U.S. Senate bills and when do you read these bills?
I'll tell you what, and maybe it's because of the fact that I'm now building in this space, and opaque regulation really, it stunts innovation, because even for us, we're just dealing with NFTs, right? Not just, but we're dealing with NFTs. We're not dealing with fungible tokens. I'm not dealing with DeFi pools and the complexities of decentralized finance. But yet when I'm building, I have to constantly figure out where the boundaries are in regulation, right? I have to avoid designing NFT projects and platforms in case somewhere, somehow, a regulatory body that matters, like the US or here in Hong Kong, decides that NFTs should be regulated as securities, right? Instead of just a different type of asset. The hardest thing for us as entrepreneurs right now is seeing, or the worst thing I should say, is seeing traditional regulation that is used to understandably protect consumers in the traditional financial system, seeing that traditional regulation being copy and pasted into this new world that to a bystander, to a layman, may look similar, but are actually fundamentally different. So yes, you are right. I do pay attention to it. It is nighttime reading insofar as a lot of times these things put me to sleep. But it does encourage me when when people, representatives and regulatory bodies, whether it's in the United States or in Dubai, seem to be talking about this stuff intelligently.
Yeah, fabulous, right? I'm on shaky ground here. I'm not a regulatory expert, but if I just think about what you're saying, is there is there are protocols of the technology itself, but that those protocols need to sit on regulatory protocols, which are probably layer -1, right? And then that's on basis of which everything needs to be built. Now that all of these blockchain protocols are being built, but they really don't have an operating system to sit on, which is how human beings interact and how government policies are, and consumer protection and regulation and all of those things. And I think that's, if we think of those as the stacks at this point, that the foundational stack of layer -1 stack is what these builds will probably bring, will make the entire house much more stable. I'm just a visual person. I'm trying to imagine your narrative sort of stacking up that way.
Yeah. It's going to end up looking like the Washington Monument if it stacks any higher. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for having this conversation today. Here's what we learned, or here's what I learned. Mentions of crypto will instantly get Biden or any other official a new and influential audience, right? Crypto communities, people that are attracted to the idea of decentralized internet will come flocking to them. An official announcement of any kind of ETH or other cryptocurrencies would probably, at least in the United States, mean a focus on the technology, not necessarily the actual currency, the underlying currency replacing fiat. We learned from Malcolm today that this tweet is going to mean trouble for the Ethereum network, because there are a lot of things preventing Ethereum from going mainstream right now, especially the fact that it is a technological bottleneck. And the upcoming merge will give the network a bit of an upgrade, but it may not do enough to move it from dial-up to broadband. And then finally, there is already a shift in the United States for policymakers that we're starting to see around their view of blockchain technologies, and especially around their view of Web3 and America's role in the innovation of Web3. And it seems that lawmakers are starting to recognize its importance for the future, and Biden advocating for ETH might be more advocacy for smart contracts than for currency. So this has been a wonderful episode of Web3 and Whiskey. Remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, on YouTube or otherwise. Also, subscribe to our weekly Departures newsletter that explores Web3 innovations and themes for the enterprise world. Next week, we're going to talk about another really interesting topic. What if a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, bought a sports team? What if a DAO bought a sports team? I'm Gary Liu. Thank you for listening. Cheers, gentlemen, and we'll see you all next time. Cheers.